Balance is one of those things that can deteriorate with age. Even if you haven't had a real fall, if you're lacking confidence with walking, stepping up and down from curbs, climbing stairs, or standing on soft ground, this video is for you. In this video, I want to take you through a 20-minute routine that you could do every day if you wanted to. At a minimum though, do this routine 3 times per week. I'm going to work along with you step by step, giving you helpful tricks and tips to guide you through. That way, you won't have to remember everything I say. We'll do the entire routine together. We aren't going to go into the science behind balance in this video, but we have talked about this on other videos on our channel, so feel free to check them out. Our balance playlist is linked in the description. Before we get into the exercises, let's go ahead and get ourselves set up for success. What your setup should look like will depend on how your balance is. One great option is to use 2 sturdy chairs, turn them around backwards like this, spread them out just a little wider than your reach here. You want to be able to touch both sides of the top of the chair if you lose your balance. Another option is to use your kitchen setup. So a countertop and your kitchen island, stand in between that, and if you lose your balance there, you want to be a step or so away from touching. Lastly, you can also use a closet or a doorway where you got a door jamb on one side or the other. That way, if you do lose your balance left or right, you have something to touch. If you feel unsteady, like you might fall backwards, then I would also suggest taking a 3rd chair and placing it behind you, just maybe an inch or 2 away from the back of your knees, so that if something were to happen and you were to lose your balance backwards, you would just kind of plop down in that chair. We're going to be using this setup today, and it's super easy. Everyone's got a couple chairs laying around. First exercise we're going to do today is weight shifting. Weight shifting with your feet together. And I'm going to put a timer on for about 3 minutes, and I'll press start when I go. But the premise of this exercise is you want to shift your weight to your toes as far as you can, to where if you felt like you went any further, you would have to take a step. And then when you try and find that boundary and you push those limits, then you want to see how your limits can go going backwards. Now, it's important to know that if you do lose your balance, I do want you to stay relaxed and take an easy step. So if I'm leaning forward and I lose my balance forward, I'm going to stay relaxed and just take a little step. If I'm leaning backwards towards my heels, getting that weight shift to my heels, and I lose my balance, I'm just going to take a little drop step. Stay nice and calm. One thing I see people do is as soon as they start to feel unsteady, they really tense up, and it ruins everything. You can't react, and it increases your chance of falling. Okay, let's start this timer. I'm going to weight shift forward. Find my limits. Try and keep your knees kind of straight. Right there, I feel like all the weight's on my big toes. I'm going to go backwards to my heel and back and forth. You don't really have to pause too much. Just get that limit and turn around and go back the other way. Okay. Right there, really almost lost it. Turning around. Going to my toes, back and forth. What this really does is it helps you find your limits of stability. That's a key word that we say a lot in the PT clinic, that just means where you are today before you become unstable. As you practice this, even within the treatment session or in this workout today, your limits of stability may get better. Because what's happening right now is I have sensory receptors in my skin, on my toes, on the bottom of my feet. And as I shift my weight towards my heels, they're sending signals to my brain. My brain is figuring out what those signals mean, sending a message back down to my feet to correct that loss of balance. That constant feedback loop is super important in making those small fixes in your balance as you start to lose it. So we're at 1 minute and 45 seconds. We're going to keep going. Just back and forth. You'll see my toes come up. When I go back and my heels come up as I go forward, that's perfectly fine. And if you're doing this at home and this is too difficult and you feel unsafe, then you can go ahead and spread your feet out a little bit. Safety is our #1 priority, so you want to make sure that you feel confident. 30 more seconds. Okay. You might be starting to feel a little bit tired in your calf muscles or the muscles in the front of your legs. That's perfect, because having good balance is not all about being steady, it's also about being strong. So working those muscles is perfectly fine. Okay, last one. We're at the 3-minute mark. Next, we're going to do a progression that I call Tandem Balance. Tandem Balance is kind of where you put one foot all the way in front of the other. This is what we call full tandem, where one foot's directly lined up, the heel of your of the front foot is directly lined up with the toe of the back foot. Modified tandem is where you have your front foot halfway forward, so the instep of the back foot is kind of tucked in tightly like a puzzle piece into the instep of the front foot. Anywhere in between those is perfectly fine. With balance, it's so important to find that spot where you feel like it's challenging, but it's not so hard that you're always losing your balance and touching. So if your balance is a little bit worse, you might do modified tandem like this. If that's even too hard for you, where you don't feel steady and you feel like you have to touch, by the way, don't get discouraged if you do lose your balance every once in a while. That's by losing those balance and having those fixes that you have to do, that's what's getting you better. But if this is too hard, meaning you're constantly touching, then you want to go ahead and spread out a little bit. Widen that base a little bit. If this is too easy, then you want to tuck it in tighter. If this is too easy, then you want to start going forward or back with the other foot and working your way into that full tandem. I'm going to go ahead and do it in full tandem, and we're going to do 30 seconds. My weight is about 50-50. I'm trying to keep about 50% on my right and 50% on my left. The reason behind that is because if I have too much weight on my front foot and I lose my balance to the right, I'm going to have a hard time stepping with my front foot because all my weight's on. I'm going to have to kind of step behind myself, and that's dangerous. 50-50, it makes it easier to just step with the foot that you have to. Okay, that's 30 seconds. We're going to go ahead and switch. It's okay to hold on while you switch if you have to. Get yourself ready, and 30 seconds. Usually the foot that's behind you is going to be the one making all the big changes there. So if your right side's a little weak because maybe you had an ankle injury or hip replacement, then this might be a little bit more challenging. If you can go the whole 30 seconds, couple sets, and you never really feel like you're being challenged, then it's time to make it harder. If you feel like you're getting a good challenge out of this, I'm going to go ahead and switch. We went a little bit over 30 seconds there. That's okay. If you feel like this is not challenging enough, then you need to make it harder. I'm going to give you a couple easy ways, but the options are endless. First one is to kind of just add some head turns. Because your eyes are such a big part of your balance center, that turning your head is just going to throw your equilibrium off a little bit. That's why it's always easier to focus on one little point. But for this one, I don't want you to do that because we want to make this harder. So turning your head, kind of scanning the room, trying to look around, you'll feel like that really throws you off. Okay, let's go ahead and switch. It's been at least 30 seconds. You can keep that going. Once you feel steady, you can start to turn your head. Another option to make it more difficult is to close your eyes. So closing my eyes, now that takes my eyesight out of it completely. Whoa, that was hard. I'm going to take a step. Okay, get myself set back up, get back into it. Close your eyes. Now, a lot of falls happen at nighttime when you're getting out of bed, it's dark, and let's go ahead and switch, and maybe trying to go to the bathroom. We see so many people fall and get hurt in those low light conditions. So practicing with your eyes closed is actually very functional and can help you feel a little bit more steady at nighttime when the light's low. Okay, we did 30 seconds, 3 times on each side or so. Now it's time to go to the next one. The next exercise is going to be marching. I guess marching, it's a little bit less than marching, but with a wide stance. Here's why. So when you're walking, when you're doing a lot of functional activities, you spend a lot of time with one foot off the ground. It's really important to have some stability on one foot because so much time spent on one foot doing functional tasks. So I'm going to have you widen your feet out. And the reason why is because in order to get a march or a leg lift, you really have to shift your weight to one side, because to be balanced on one foot, I need to shift my center of gravity in the middle of my body over my foot that I'm leaving on the ground so that I can lift the other one off. My center of gravity is very close to the middle of my foot. That's why I'm able to lift this leg. If I only shifted my center of gravity halfway and I went to lift my foot, I would immediately start to fall back down. So as people lose their balance as they age, and you'll see them widen their stance out. Well, that's actually dangerous because you're never really getting that good enough weight shift. So if you trip or you step on something, your cat runs out from underneath the bed and trips you up, you're going to lose your balance and you're going to fall like a sack of potatoes. So shift your weight, lift up. You only have to come an inch or two, put it back down nice and soft. Shift your weight the opposite side, pick your foot up, set it down nice and soft, go back and forth. We're going to do this for a couple minutes. The count's not really important. It's kind of when you get tired and you feel like you need to stop. You can put a timer on for three minutes just in case, but go until you get fatigued. If you're having trouble lifting up and you feel like your side is collapsing back down, it may be because of your hip strength. So one good cue that I like to talk to my patients about is as you shift your weight to one side, at the same time as you lift this leg up, try and push the ground down with your opposite leg. So I'm going to lift this hip and push the ground down. That's going to engage my hip abductors and really get my opposite hip to hike up a little bit, holding myself nice and stable. If you feel like you're rushing to get your foot back down, then you're never really getting that weight shifted properly. Okay. Pushing the ground down, lift up the leg, weights over my toe, back down nice and soft. You'll be amazed because in the beginning, this will be almost impossible. You'll feel like you're doing terrible. But as you go, as your muscles and your brain start to work together better as a team, you're going to notice a quick improvement. Back and forth. Okay. We're going to keep going for about another 30 seconds. By the way, if you're doing this balance routine with me and you feel tired, go ahead and hit the pause button, take a break, let your legs get recovered a little bit, catch your breath, and when you're ready, unpause it, start back up. That exercise is a good segue into our next exercise, or single leg stance progression. There's been a lot of research to support that being able to stand on one foot for 10 seconds or more is directly correlated to your falls risk, which is directly correlated to your life expectancy. So being able to do this is super functional. Standing on one foot, kind of like we just did, only this time we're not weight shifting as much, but there's still a little subtle weight shift, and you're just going to pick your foot up. This one I am going to count. I'm going to do 15 seconds. I would say 90% of my patients over the age of 55 or so cannot do this for 15 seconds. So don't feel bad if you can't. Been 15 seconds. Weight shift, push the ground down, lift your leg up. If this is just impossible for you, then I'm going to let you cheat just a tad. I'm going to let you take your pinky, I'm going to let you put it on the back of that chair and put about a ½ pound of force there. Okay, switch. Weight shift, push the ground down, lift the leg. If you're able to do it, even if it's a little bit challenging, perfect. If you can't do it, if you're constantly falling and feeling unsafe, take one finger, place it on the chair, just to steady yourself a tad. Making it too easy, you're taking all the benefit out of it, so don't do that. Should still be challenging. Weight shift, push the ground down, lift a leg. Okay to touch. We're going to go back and forth. 15 seconds, 5 times on each side. I think I lost count a little bit, but I'm going to do a couple more. Okay, switch. Weight shift, push the ground down, lift up. Pretty challenging. I'm starting to get a little tired. When you start to get tired, things get harder. You might think that's bad. That's actually good, because how many falls do we see when people are tired? A lot. In fact, a lot of falls happen on the way back to a chair because you're so dang tired that you want to sit down, and those last step or two, you rush. So being fatigued and practicing your balance is good, because it teaches you to stay calm and finish the job before you lose your balance and sit. So we're going to do last one here, 15 seconds. And then we're going to stop. Last exercise is called Tandem Walking. I'm going to demonstrate this in the open here, but I would highly recommend that you do this in your kitchen where you have your countertop or an island or something to walk around, so that if you do lose your balance, that you can reach out and grab something and steady yourself. But again, if you do lose your balance, you should also take that quick step. We've talked about that in other videos. It's so important. You want to take that step, have a good stepping strategy. You don't want to be overly reliant on your hands, although it's perfectly fine to use both, your step and your hands. But basically, if you're walking on a balance beam or walking on a tightrope, you're taking what we just did in that tandem balance earlier and we're bringing it into a walking pattern. It's a lot harder, so heel, places right over the toe, and then you go. I'm making this look easy, but what I'm thinking about doing is when I take my right leg or my back leg and place it in front, you want to make sure that your other leg is now ready to hold all of your body weight and be nice and steady. Again, I'm thinking about pushing the ground down as I lift my other leg up. Slowly switching. So I'm pushing the ground down, lifting up. Shifting my weight, pushing the ground down, lifting up. You're going to channel your inner Walinda here, like you're walking on the tightrope. Nice and slow. Speed is not your friend. If I see people going too fast, I know that they're losing their balance. Okay. And then what you'll do is kind of just turn around and do the same thing back. Okay. Do a couple sets of those. I'm going to show you what a normal patient looks like. You take your step and you start to bring the leg around, and sometimes you lose your balance off to the side and you put your foot back down. You do a little stutter step. So here, that's perfectly fine. Balance is all about doing the best you can, balance practice. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, if you're perfect, you probably don't need to be doing this. To progress this a little bit harder, you can even try to go backwards. So instead of turning around, now I'm going to go toe to heel and do it backwards. Watch your step. Know what's behind you here. Make sure you don't bump into anything. Nice and steady, nice and slow. Okay. Go back and forth a few times. Once you mastered this, you can make it a little bit harder by doing it on carpet. Again, just make sure you have something to hold on to, like the back of your couch. And if you want to bring it to expert level, you go out to that nice, soft grass you have in the backyard and do it out there. Go to the beach, something to have a little bit of an unstable surface. Okay. I'm going to go back, going backwards or retro walking. It's okay to pick up your tempo some, like I am. Just don't be out of control. Always be in control. Let's do one more round. Heel to toe. Shift your weight. Push the ground down. Place your foot nice and soft. Good job. This is super hard, so do not get discouraged if you're not feeling like you're knocking it out of the park here. Think about this as your graduation exercise. If you can do this perfectly, then it's time to graduate to more difficult things. But there's a lot of seniors who, no matter how hard they try, this will always be a little bit difficult because this is a very advanced exercise. Before we end, I wanted to show you one extra little trick that you can do to make things harder. We have these foam pads. I don't expect you guys to have them at home, but you can also take a towel, like a beach towel or something with a little cushion, roll it up. If you have a high pile rug or something like that, use that. If you got soft carpet with a carpet pad, that's a perfect spot to do it. Like I said earlier, outside on your lawn or at the beach, something with an unstable surface, and you can stand on it. So if I'm doing tandem balance, this immediately makes the ability for your feet and your ankles to make these little corrections, it makes those a lot harder. So instead of being able to grab your toe on the solid ground, it's gonna make it to where you feel like you almost have to use your hips and your knees a little bit more. So with this one, it's important to keep your knees nice and soft, athletic position, and think of yourself as like a downhill skier where you have to have those soft legs and catch yourself. As you lose your balance, you throw the hip and you kind of get intuitive. Staying relaxed here is key. If you tense up, you're not going to do good. Again, that's just one way that you can make this exercise a little bit harder. This workout will be easy for some and harder for others. If you have any questions about what we did today, leave them in the comments section and I'll do my best to guide you through them. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing to our channel and checking out more great content that we have to offer, like this one. Until next time.